A very good evening to you, our listener out there. And once again, I would just like to welcome you to this very weekly program goes by the name Face the Mic. And today here, I'm very much honored to have with me Professor Dr. Peter Baofu, an American scholar and writer who has so far written 148 books, whereby by next week, something surprising is that it's going to have 150 books exactly. Dr. Peter Baofu, you're warmly welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, this is TBC International Studio, and as I said earlier, that we are so much honored to have you in the studio here.
And thank you for...
Yes, my name is Dar Es Salufu. I'm going to be with you all the way to 4 o'clock East African time. What Tanzania is missing, according to your opinion, what do you think is Tanzania missing to the extent that is having a lot of natural resources, is endowed with natural resources, but still among the poorest countries on earth?
Yes, I have written 2 major books on this very issue. One book is called The Future of Capitalism and Democracy. The second book is called Beyond Capitalism and Post-Capitalism, in which I talk about there's no wealth without poverty, and there's no poverty without wealth. Now, what do I mean by that?
There's no wealth
There's no wealth without poverty, and there's no poverty without wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So when he asks, or when I heard this question all the time, so it's not just about him, but many people that I spoke to often ask me this question, not just in Africa, by the way, also in many other countries, in Latin America, in the Middle East, in South Asia, and all that. I think that, let me start with 2 comments which can make him think one more time.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree that Africa is poor.
You disagree?
I disagree.
Completely?
Completely.
But what is the reason then that we are still
That's
poor?
why I'm trying to say next. I do think that Africa is very rich, and that's why the Europeans came to colonize you. If you are so poor, think about it. Why do you think the Europeans bother to come here and colonize you? A lot of resources. So in a way, that's not quite true that Africa is poor. Africa is very rich. When I was in different countries, for example, I often saw a lot of resources that the people have. And those resources are just everywhere in Africa. So Africa is very rich, but on the other hand, as I said before, Africa is also poor, as he said, and someone else have said too. Now, why is that poor? I think there's a lot of answer to that in relation to 4 major categories of explanation that I just mentioned. Some of them are cultural problems, some of them are social problems.
Let's go slowly, Professor. The first reason as to why Africa is poor, or African countries are poor, is first, cultural reasons.
First, there are cultural reasons.
Cultural reasons.
Secondly, there are social reasons.
Social reasons.
Number 3, there are natural reasons.
Natural reasons.
And number 4, there are mental reasons.
Mental reasons.
So in relation to culture, society, nature, and the mind. And I explain all of this in my publications. So I just want to summarize this very quickly. I said that's a good question, but I do think that if you want to know why Tanzania or Africa in this case are poor, my answer is twofold. Number 1 is what I just said, that I disagree that Africa is poor. Africa is very rich in many ways. So, and the way of life here in Africa in many ways are even better than the way of life in America. The way of life in America is very stressful, for example. The way of life in Africa is very merry, easygoing kind of way of life, and that is not necessarily bad. Now the trade-off of that if you are merry-going and you don't work too much, that means that you will not earn a lot. But I think that is a question of value judgment here. The more you work, the more you earn, but at the same time, the more stressful you will be. You will see a lot of time constraint that you will suffer. So there is a value judgment. How much more do you want A, and how much more do you want to sacrifice B? That's a value judgment. People often say in Africa over here or in Tanzania, they always want to copy from the West, from Europe. Now they copy from China and all that. I think that America and Europe and all that, and China, they have a lot of successes, but they also have a lot of problems. If you copy them, don't think that you can just copy the good. You're always copying the problems that they have too. So I think there's a question of value judgment about the differences. And the second answer is what I just said. The explanations are fourfold in relation to the mind, nature, society, and culture. So how do you deal with this? In the end, that's the conclusion of my answer, is that it all depends on you and the government how to come up with some solution to address these four categories of problems that I just mentioned. And no two person, no two groups, no two countries will answer the question in the same way. Back to the beginning of the interview again, you asked me about how are you successful in this, how can other people learn from you. I said that different people are different, just like Muhammad Ali and I, we are different from each other. But the same analogy, different groups, different countries, different governments will answer the same question that he asked in different way. You ask the same question in Tanzania, or you ask the same question in Egypt, you ask the same question, let's say, in South Africa, people will give you a different answer. In relation to the mind, culture, society, and nature again.
Well, so you've said that Tanzania and Africa at large is not poor.
That's why I said there's no wealth without poverty and no poverty without wealth. There are two answers to the questions.
Yes, I got you very clear. I was just making it clear for the benefit of our listener out there. And you said something very important for me, that it is the country itself, in cooperation with the government and the citizens, who will decide on whether they should continue being poor or come out of poverty. Because basing on your explanations that it is our mindset, the mental, the mindset is one of the problems that makes us poor. But now the only language we Tanzanians do speak now is that we want to get out of poverty. And there are so many measures taken to make sure that poverty becomes history. Now you as a theorist, how do you see? Shall we make it?
Yes, I do think that you can make it, but not in the sense that some people have in mind. That's why I try to challenge the conventional wisdom. I don't think that just by copying from China or the West or from America will give you the answer. No, it will not help you very much in the longer term. My challenge to the Tanzanian, with the government or NGO, whatever, but I don't want to pinpoint a person to attack one government or something like that. My point is that overall, in the end, it is important for the people here and the government over here to come up with a dialogue such that they can come to a consensus as to what exactly is that kind of combination and the value selection that I have in mind.
Okay,
and that they have to engage into that dialogue to come, and no one can give you the answer and say, this is the objective answer, take it because I said so. It doesn't work out that way.
Okay, got you. But however, we are on the right track towards, making poverty history here in our country. No matter how long will it take, correct?
I don't put that in that kind of black or white category. I think that's very extreme. I do saw things. Again, I don't want to mention an individual or government official or any politician, but I'm just saying that some of the things that I saw seem to be very commonsensical to me. But some other one, I think that we need to have more dialogue.
With this remark from Professor Dr. Peter Baofu, then we've come to the end of today's Face the Mic program. Just to remind you today, I had with me here Professor Dr. Peter Baofu, an American scholar and writer, doctor and professor. Thank you very much for
Thank you for inviting
here.
me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Dar Es Salaam. Much thanks to you, my listener out there, for being with me all the way from the start to the end. See you next time. See you.